everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after what is, I'm sure, to a lot of people out there, feeling like the continuation of a nightmare. The oh no, not again feeling. Very pervasive in the Winnipeg market right now, I would think, and rightfully so. This isn't a momentum shift. This is the Winnipeg Jets getting 12 goals hung on them in 2 games, scoring just 3 goals in those 2 games. This is the Winnipeg Jets Vezina Trophy, soon to be third-time winner, being chased from the game. After being chased from the last game, after not being chased from a game the entirety of the regular season, this is kind of the culmination of Winnipeg Jets fans and probably the team itself nightmares of, oh no, not again. A team that at one point in the playoffs looks like they are that wagon that we've seen from them for so long that is near unstoppable, to a team that now looks extremely vulnerable, a team that looks like they may be lacking confidence, a team that definitely looks like they are kind of frozen in this moment, a team that looks like it does not know how to handle the swings of momentum that come with the playoffs. We've seen it in years past. Regardless of whether or not the Jets are going to halt this, we're seeing it again. Mark Scheifele described it as unraveling by his team. I think it's a good word. I think it kind of explains what happens in this. And it's strange because, okay, we finished last game, and I truly believe this. I think it's what we saw. The Winnipeg Jets were victims of Monty in game 3, right? He came up with a really good game plan that the Winnipeg Jets weren't able to adjust to, and now they get one hung on them in game 3. It's their job to counter. It's the job of the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff to counter, and that's what they did. And for the first half of this game, the Winnipeg Jets were clearly the better of the 2 teams in this game. It's one of these games in which, in spite of the fact that the St. Louis Blues got heavily outplayed in the first period, they get a late goal and it's tied 1-1. That shouldn't be a big deal, right? Because the Winnipeg Jets' MO for the entirety of the season has been like, so what? Just keep doing what we do and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And they looked like they kept doing what they were doing until things went in the other direction. Second goal of the game, we're going to have to get into talking about Connor Hellebuyck. I don't like this goal. We'll dig into it a little bit. His reaction is what I really don't like. The first thing that he does after the goal is scored is what I think is telling in this situation. He had no chance on the first one. We'll dig into all of these things later, but that's where things kind of turn. That's where the unraveling begins. But I'll tell you this, when you see the same thing working for a team over and over and over again, that's coaching, that's game planning. And I don't know how many times I saw the St. Louis Blues get a clean, easy exit out of their zone with a guy down, and now imagine this, in the right side corner, passing the puck straight out of the zone to the far left winger who would be standing on the face-off dot. If you do that, the Jets, who are entirely predicated, all their success is predicated on pressuring you. In order to pressure, you need numbers, and that means you've got numbers down low, and with one pass, your opposition gets it in behind all your numbers, gets it to a guy on the opposite face-off dot, and then he's going to have an easy time skating the puck into your zone. And now what that means at the very least is the Blues can set up or can gain access to your zone easily, and the rest of your team has to skate to catch up to get back to the zone. So they're heading in the wrong direction. The thing about hockey is when you can get a defense moving, you can take advantage of that movement because they pass it to where you just were and you're going in the wrong direction. The Jets defend so well because they're usually defending in the same spot and only moving slightly. There's a dynamic element to how the St. Louis Blues are forcing the Jets to play that they're capitalizing on. So I go back to this. I've said this before. The Winnipeg Jets at their best are a giant boulder that when they can get it rolling, they're very, very hard to stop. But when you do stop it, it's hard to get that boulder going. And this is why I thought it was extremely important to not do what so many people's instincts were to do at that time. And so many people's instincts now are to blame it on, the Jets just quit playing. They quit playing, or the refs had something to do with this. Or I can't tell you how many texts I'm getting from people talking about how the poor Jets just aren't getting any bounces in a series where Mark Scheifele has 2 goals that the opposition team put in their own net. And they're like, if you're sitting here right now thinking that the refs are causing this and that the hockey gods are causing this, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is this is why it's important. When we talked about teams like Anaheim, when we talked about teams like Utah and how they challenged the Jets, that it was important to not just say, oh, they had a bad game, they didn't show up. And I thought that was a BS excuse in Game 3. The Jets didn't have it. They didn't show up. The problem with playing a brand of hockey that the Jets play that is extremely, extremely aggressive and is predicated on, I'm going to pressure you and you're going to turn over the puck and then we're just going to roll on you. And everyone knows what I'm talking about because everyone knows what the Winnipeg Jets look like. But if they can't do that, how do you respond? That's the question. How do you respond when you go to pressure that team and they don't just give you the puck and you don't get it and you don't get to hold on to it for a long time? Now you're chasing. Now, because you are pressuring, if you can get the puck on the other side of that pressure, there's a wide open hole that can be taken advantage of. But at the very least, the players who were pressuring are now not in a good spot and need to try and get back in. The St. Louis Blues made in-game adjustments that once again the Winnipeg Jets struggled with down the stretch here. Like I said, I pointed to that pass. There's very specific plays. If you see a team is beating your team and they're doing it over and over and over again, and it looks the same over and over and over again, it's because they've found something that works and your team has not found something to stop it. And so far, right now, to me, the difference in games 3 and 4 is that the St. Louis Blues are finding ways that work against the Winnipeg Jets, and the Winnipeg Jets are a step behind in finding how to counter. And that's why those games look as bad as they do. That's why the score is as lopsided as it is. And that's why the team is suddenly looking like their confidence level isn't high, because usually, hey, we go out and when I do this, that guy just gives me the puck and now I get to just cram it down their throat. It's not happening. And when you're not used to that not happening, you don't understand why. The Jets look lost, and right now they're lost because they are a step behind the St. Louis Blues in how to execute the game plan that one team is coming up with that is challenging the other. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, we got the purple memo with each other today. Your pocket square, though, I think is clashing right now.
It's my press pass.
I know it's your press pass. I'm just playing with you there. Either way, it wouldn't matter what you did with the press pass, what color it was. It could be teal, could be green. Wouldn't matter because the boys of Vittorio Rossi have you and I looking like $1 million. I got a compliment on the street today for the lilac shirt I was wearing. It's a Vittorio special, as what you're wearing is a Vittorio special. So if you want random strangers in St. Louis stopping you to tell you how much they like your lilac shirt. I don't know. Maybe he was making, I don't know. But if you want random strangers doing that, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, get at it.
Yeah, I mean, this is, if the game 3 was a jab, left jab from the Blues, this was a right hook from down under here. So Jets did a lot of the things early that they wanted to do. I thought that first goal against was very deflating, and it was a strange goal also because it was a blended shift. There were a couple things happening with the forward group. Guys who aren't normally together were out there, and just ended up being a bit of a coverage issue in front. Luke Shen had his guy tied up on the right side, but Neighbors was pretty much wide open on the other side. And again, it's a knuckle puck that, is floating, and great tip by Neighbors. But that's a goal that can't happen. 22.7 seconds. Jets failed to clear the zone earlier. They had control of the puck, couldn't get it out. So that's a problem. That's something that they have to clean up. Second period, goal, they gave up a goal with 106 to go. That's championships teams, and the Jets have played like a championship team during the course of the year. They don't do that very often in the playoffs. Yes, we know there's urgency and teams push, and it's often the Jets scoring those deflating goals that are late in period, Sean, right? That's the thing we've seen all year long, where the Jets, the other team thinks they're in it, and all of a sudden there it is, and it doesn't happen. Now the other team has sort of seized the momentum. And yeah, I mean, you touched on it. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck pulled in consecutive games. He's given up 15 goals now in the series. Numbers aren't pretty. And it's not all about the numbers. I get it. 424 goals against, 817 save percentage. It's something that Connor knows he needs to be better. I like the honesty with Scott Arniel. Of course, he's confident in his goalie. He's always going to be confident, and he should be. He has reason to be confident. But he didn't ask Connor Hellebuyck to take the series over by himself. He said, we've got to do some things to be better, and he's got to be doing some things also. This is a two-way street situation. Connor Hellebuyck doesn't have to steal the series, but what he does need to do is play better than he has so far. Again, pucks bouncing off of him, everything else fine. There were a couple things that, Sean, you talked about it a little bit, or hinted at it, certainly. The third goal by Shen, that to me, there is some luck to that goal, sure. Samberg gets a good piece of it, but Hellebuyck gets his stick on it, but he doesn't cover it, right? Braden Shen wanted the puck more in that situation, Sean. There was no backtracking by the Jets in that scenario also. That's got to be better. But Braden Shen got to a puck that either could have been covered or could have been blocked by Samberg, either way. And this is not about pointing fingers, but that puck can't get through there. And Braden Shen, if it does get through, Braden Shen can't have an unimpeded path to the net in order to bury that goal in that situation. That's not how the Jets have played this year. That's not their game, right? So, some of those uncharacteristic things, now the Jets are going to have to power through it, right? I mean, there's no sense stewing over it. They've, blown an opportunity to go up either 3-1 or essentially it was going to be 2-2 or 3-1. Jets didn't get the job done. Guess what? It's a best of 3 series. They have home ice advantage, and they still should be in a good position. But that's only going to be the case if they play better than they did in this, parts of the second period and the third here today. They're not operating at the same level. The Blues seem to be operating at peak efficiency, Sean, is how I see it. The Jets have shown flashes of that at times, but they're not handling adversity very well, is how I'm viewing things here. I don't think they're abandoning the structure, but they're also not as tight. Their details are not right. Connor Hellebuyck always talks about the details. Right now, the Jets' details are not right, and Connor's details are not as right as they have been. Jets will not be starting Comrie, folks. I mean, I understand the initial thought. And Sean, you and I talked. Comrie looks very sharp today. He looked very sharp. He was aggressive, all of those things. Connor Hellebuyck's going to have 2 days to get in the lab. He's got to get himself right. And that it's going to be essential in this series because Jordan Binnington is getting better every single game, right, Sean? Now his goals against is 227 and his save percentage is 907, and it was previously in the mid 800s, which wasn't great all either. But right now Binnington's making a bunch of saves at one end, and right now Hellebuyck pucks are going off other people, but Connor's got to find a way to raise his level. But he's not alone. This is not a only one person has to be better. Um, Jets are not getting anything from the middle six lines offensively right now. We saw a bunch of frustration. Mason Appleton had a glorious chance, rings it off the post, Sean, right? That line got some things generated, but couldn't convert. Second line had some chances, haven't converted. I mean, this is we talked about it going into the series. They had lots of guys, 12 guys or 13 guys in double digits for goals. Right now, they're not getting enough offense, but the offense isn't the concern. The concern is the defense, Sean. The team defense right now is a major concern. They've given up 11 goals in 2 games. You don't become the Jennings Trophy winner in consecutive seasons if you're not strong enough structurally. And right now, the Jets' structure is not good enough. Special teams are not bailing them out. Power play had some good looks early on in the first period, but couldn't convert. And right now, the Jets need to raise their level on a number of situations. Best players have to elevate. Josh Morrissey had a very good game too. He was in on both goals, but right now, Josh is a play driver, Sean. We talked about it all year long. When the Jets are going, Josh Morrissey is driving play. Right now, the Blues did a great job, Sean, and you talked about it upstairs here. The Blues have made life difficult physically on Mark Scheifele, on Kyle Connor, on Josh Morrissey, on Neil Pionk, and they're not playing at the same level. The Jets' top line is doing more than enough offensively, but as a whole, this team needs to play better. They have another level they can reach, and if they don't reach that level, they could be looking at a third consecutive first-round exit, right? So, again, but I'm also not. So this is not a whatever we call it how we see it. For folks saying that the series is over, I would advise that's. I understand where you're coming from, and hey, Blues are playing great. Could they win 4 in a row? Of course they could, but it's not an automatic here, and I don't think the Jets will wilt or fold in this scenario. But if the Jets want to change the narrative, that's on them now. This is time for them to step up and show what they're made of, and that's the only way the narrative changes.
That was a good old-fashioned trip to the buffet. It's touching on a lot of topics. We'll have to break down a lot of them. I want to challenge you on one of them here before we move on. But first, I'm ready to dole out the Flame and Comfort hot take. Okay, here we go. Styles T, and I get it. The Jets, someone made a good point of how many goals they've scored in the last 3 games. But Styles T says, can we see some scoring? All the defenses there. Helly's been suspect, but the bigger issue is early run support. The one thing that we always run into, we've talked about it on this podcast before, is there's always this urge. We saw it in the playoffs last year. There's always this urge to forgive whatever's happening with Connor Hellebuyck and try and pin and assign the blame elsewhere. Okay? There's no one could look at this series right now. Yeah, and so because of this, I'm going to hand this out early. That's going to be our Flame and Comfort. That's our Flame and Comfort hot take, because to me, it feels to me like someone, and I'm hearing it, I'm having people text it to me. People are looking for an excuse. It can't possibly be Connor Hellebuyck. It's got to be something else, and it's got to be the team in front of them. It's got to be everything in front of the net. So for me, that's your KNR hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort. The people who are desperately trying to bend over to backwards to make excuses for this. Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth-related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort is soon moving. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. Visit Flame and Comfort. And they will take care of it for you. Okay, I've been talking about this all year. You guys all know my take when it comes to the Hart Trophy. And what is always said to me, well, he's not challenged, but when he is challenged, he's there and he's ready. And he makes one more save than the other guy. And all those kind of things that are really kind of unqualifiables that people just hang on. It's a lazy way to say, well, they're winning and it's Connor Hellebuyck. They keep winning. Somehow it's Connor Hellebuyck. He made the right save at the right time, or it's this, or it's that. And I do kind of take a little bit of issue with, you're talking about the details. There's going to be breakdowns. So Braden Shen gets in front of the net, but Connor Hellebuyck on that play puts himself in a position where he's trying to do everything and not doing anything. We've seen how often he tries to interrupt play by using his stick and shutting things down. And he does it, but to your point, Ken, it's too far out for him to be able to play it. So now he's in no man's land. He's down on his knee so that he can extend his stick and get his stick flat on the ice to block that puck. But he's not able to play the puck or move it out of a dangerous area. And because of that, when Shen gets a hold of it, Connor Hellebuyck is not in a position to tend the goal, and it's in the back of the net, okay? That's on Connor Hellebuyck, okay? We can say whatever we want. A guy gets a scoring opportunity. Goal number 3 is on Connor Hellebuyck, okay? Goal number 2, I wanted to get to this. The shot goes in, and yeah, there's a screen that rolls in front of him. I mean, again, we sit there and we everyone patted the Jets on the back all year for all of the goals that they scored by getting guys to the front of the net. And now it's a complete and total breakdown by your team because guys got in front for a screen at some point. That's going to happen in the playoffs. It's going to continue happening if the Jets keep going here. And that was a flyby screen. Connor Hellebuyck sees that. He reacts to it too late. What I like the least is his reaction instantaneously is to turn and complain to the ref about non-existent contact that was not there. I spoke with John Garrett about it afterwards, and John Garrett said down to the truck, get ready to cue this up because Connor Hellebuyck is upset with the contact, and the truck is saying, John, there's no contact there. What I don't like about this is Connor Hellebuyck's first instinct, rather than being a goaltender who is not checked into this series yet and is thinking, okay, time to get going, is looking for someone to blame on that goal. And that's a problem. It's a problem when your goaltender is too busy trying to slough off. It reminds me of last season. I liked my game. I thought I was playing great. There's got to be some kind of, okay, this is on me at some point. At some point, I have to be a difference maker. And if anyone out there is trying to make any kind of argument that this is a goaltender's duel at this stage, they are way off. They are either seeing this through such aviator tinted glasses that it's not even funny. Jordan Binnington is dominating this duel between these two players, and it is not close. First goal, that's not on Connor Hellebuyck. A tip shot like that, that's not on him. Jog my memory on the fourth goal. Off of Neil Pionk. We've talked about this.
Yeah, off his pants, yeah.
Hockey gods kind of goal, but like the Jets, it's the right way. The player goes in front of Neil Pionk and then sneaks off to the side, and Neil Pionk goes to box him out, but instead, Ken, of boxing him out with his butt skating back into him, he turns towards him, and when he turns towards him, he stops the ability for him to see where the puck is coming from, and now he's just something for the puck to bounce in off of. So the Jets are very good at doing this, getting teams to turn away from where the shot is coming from, and now all they become is something for the puck to deflect off of. So that one is more on Neil Pionk, and then the
Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's his. You give a guy so much time, he's going to beat your goalie, right? But all of you folks out there who are like, well, he saves the one that keeps them in there. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, Connor Hellebuyck is there to save the day when we need him, but oh no, he let that goal in because he let the guy. Is that a breakdown by the Jets? For sure it is. It's a breakdown by Kyle Connor, who turns over the puck and then doesn't back check. And the high guy, some people will say this is Josh Morrissey. Josh Morrissey plays his guy. The other defenseman is playing his guy. Thomas walks down Main Street because the guy who's chasing him did not get on his horse and get back. So that there's blame to go around for sure. But if your instinct is always to not say this isn't Connor Hellebuyck's fault, everyone else's fault, but it's not Connor Hellebuyck's fault. Connor Hellebuyck hasn't checked into this series yet. And keep in mind, Connor Hellebuyck allowed 3 goals on his first 10 shots in the first game, and the Winnipeg Jets shut that game down so that he could get his feet underneath him. The Winnipeg Jets have already gone out and won Connor Hellebuyck a game when he put them in a position to lose that game, won in this series already. He owes them back. He owes the Winnipeg Jets the ability to go out there, and if they're breaking down, rather than the fan base piling on them like is happening right now and saying, oh, they're not playing well and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. You know what would solve all those problems? If Connor Hellebuyck went out and stole a game like Jordan Binnington has been doing for his team. He hasn't needed to the last couple of games. He sure came close to doing it in games 1 and 2. And it brings me to the question, Ken, because like you, I agree 100%. Comrie is not going to start in game 5 here. Why is Comrie not starting in game 5?
Well, I mean, he's not starting because the Jets still believe that Connor Hellebuyck can find the level that he played at throughout the course of the year, which made him the best goalie in the league. So just kind of just dovetailing your earlier point here. I mean, I personally, again, maybe it's because we're in the media, but I personally think it would serve Connor well. We know he'll like his details and all that. I would love to hear Connor get out in front of the media at some point in the next couple days before game 5 and just say, I need to be better. That's not an admission of vulnerability, Sean. That's just a fact. It doesn't mean that he doesn't feel confident. He is confident. He will remain confident. I just think that's part of, we've always talked about Connor and his maturity and the steps that he's bringing forward with his game. I just think that that's one area where, we've heard about how Connor is a leader. We've heard him say things that make him part of the leadership group. But we talk about accountability all the time. And it doesn't go against the grain of the power of positivity for him to go out and say, I need to be better. I just think that would serve him, I think is, again, I'm not trying to speak for his teammates, but I think that would serve him well on a number of levels. Personally. Anyways, that's not an aside to your original question. I mean, again, Eric Comrie was a very good backup during the course of the year, Sean, but, the Jets going to Comrie, it would be viewed as a panic move.
Why? Why is it viewed as a panic move when the goaltender?
Well, because he's the Vezina Trophy winner, Sean. That's why.
Okay, so why does that matter? Honestly, why does that matter?
I don't understand.
Why does it matter? How do you not understand the question? Why does it matter? Why does his past performance have any bearing on what's happening right now? He's not, hey, I can tell you this. He's not a former Conn Smythe Trophy winner, Ken.
Sure.
We've talked about him in the playoffs before. Comrie comes in, settles the game down, plays extremely well. The team looks a little bit better in front of him. He's been there for them. They found towards the end of the year that he was playing well. They went and had one of their most character wins. Some people were calling it a statement game in Vegas where he played brilliantly against that team. Why would you not go and give your team that opportunity to say, okay, right now, this guy is not at the top of his game. This guy is playing really well. Go out. Let's get our bearings back. We have so much confidence from our team that if they get to their game, they'll play well. We think that he can survive behind this goaltender. Other teams are moving away from their top goaltender. Why is it untouchable? Why is it not a tool that is there to be used, and the Jets refuse to use it year after year?
Well, Eric has 2 career playoff games, and they were both relief appearances in the last 2 games, Sean. That's part of it. And also because they don't believe he's been giving up a bunch of soft goals. So that would be the other, that's as simple as I can put it. Again, I'm not saying Eric Comrie couldn't win a game against the Blues. He did it in the first game after 4 nations. The stakes are very high. And it's not just because of the contract, but Connor Hellebuyck is the franchise goalie. That's why he should be in the net. And that's why, again, I expect him to be better. I understand I said I expect him to be better today. But I just think that he's earned the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, he needs to elevate his game. That is a fact. And, if he's not sharp to start the next game, maybe you consider it again. Maybe you consider a quick hook then. And I understand Sean, to your point, if you put the goalie on notice and you're considering a quick hook, then why not just start Comrie? I get the theory. I just don't think it's certainly goaltending has been an issue. I just don't think it's the only issue for the Jets, and that's why they'll continue to ride with Hellebuyck here.
Okay, let's move on and move up to the top line. You talked a little bit about Scheifele and maybe not just top line, Scheifele and Morrissey. I'm wondering if the physicality of the series has had a tendency to slow both those players down in games 3 and games 4. Now, I know the top line went out and they had one of their top line shifts, right?
Yep.
One of those great shifts results in the goal. It's like, okay, this line's back. They're back to doing their things. And then there was a couple times that Mark Scheifele got targeted with some hits, and things seemed to slow down after that. Now, that may just coincide. With adjustments that were made by the St. Louis Blues. I'm telling you right now, I see them happening. I said again, if you're seeing plays happen over and over and over again that are allowing a team to relieve pressure and get down the ice and set up in the opposition zone, then they've found something. And maybe what that does is it takes away from Mark Scheifele's line, which is probably the perfect example of the boulder rolling downhill, because that shift that they had, there was probably 4 or 5 times that the Blues could have cleared their zone in that shift, and the Jets just steal it back. You're just not going to get this puck out. But I wonder, do you think the physicality of this series is having anything to do with slowing down that line and having them look at wide swaths of these past 2 games not like themselves?
Well, it has to. I mean, the facts are in the first couple of games, they barely got hit at all, and they were all over the score sheet. And in the second 2 games, they were hit all the time, and they did muster the 1 goal, but that they're losing their matchup in a lot of the situations, or at least even in the matchup. And that would say that it has to be part of it. I don't think that any of those players are shying away from it. And I know that's not what you're saying, but I do think it has gotten them off their game to a certain degree. I still see Mark Scheifele winning a lot of battles along the boards. We saw it all throughout the first period. But after giving up that late goal, it was deflating for the Jets, Sean. I mean, it wasn't just the second period where things kind of went sideways. Giving up that lead, the inability to get to 2-0 was critical in this game. Jets had tons of chances. It could have had a power play goal to get to 2-0. But going even after the period, given the shots were 12-5 and the zone time was wide disparity for the Jets, but it didn't matter. They were even after that. But yeah, top line needs to be better. But they are one of the few lines that's generating. So I'm not hanging a whole lot on the top line either, because the middle 6 needs to get moving here. So in terms of Josh, again, Josh has had an exceptional season. I'm not 100% sure he's going to make the top 3 and be a finalist, as I predicted early in the year, but he is going to be in the top 5 in Norris voting. And right now, Josh is the kind of guy that can turn a series around. And right now, the Jets are going to be leaning on guys like Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor to help try to swing the momentum back the other direction, because they're capable. And again, no one's saying they're not trying. Of course they're trying. But right now they have they're not at peak levels. And that's part of the Jets when they're at their best. Josh Morrissey is their best defenseman, and he's the best defenseman in the game that's being played. Right now, Cam Fowler's got a 5-point night. And I'm not saying Josh needs to go out and get 5 points, but he needs to drive play. And that's what he's done throughout the course of the year. I think he had an excellent game too. But otherwise, the Blues have found a way to kind of keep them under wraps, I guess, if you will. So again, he's one of many guys that has another level to reach. And again, Josh is a guy who's a great leader. He's got lots of accountability, and I expect him to be at his very best as a series shifts back to Winnipeg. But there's a lot of things that need to change for the Jets. And I mean, again, part of that, I'm not saying Gabe Vilardi is going to be the guy that turns the series around either, but I do expect Gabe Vilardi will be back in the lineup in Game 5 with the benefit of another couple of days.
Okay, I want to say this before we move on. I'm going to hand out the Pristine Roofing call to Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck needs to. I've said this before. I don't think he's arrived in this series yet. He needs to, if the Winnipeg Jets are going to halt this momentum here, like you'd said. I honestly, I would be not shying away from the idea of putting Eric Comrie in net, but we know the Winnipeg Jets. We know exactly what they're going to do. They've shown it in the past. They live and die by Hellebuyck, and they've waited in years past for his playoff game to arrive, and they've waited their way right out of the playoffs in the past. I don't see that changing this time around. But he then needs to get the Pristine Roofing wake-up call if he's going to help the Jets out in this series. And that means time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place to check out all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing as well at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. You will be happy that you did. Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout-out while we're doing this?
Right on. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
You know what, Ken, you talked about it. Winnipeg 33 says, I agree. Helly needs to acknowledge he needs to be better. This is an interesting comment, and it comes down to the idea that last year, Connor Hellebuyck came out after that was an 8-7 game or 7-6 game to start the series against the Colorado Avalanche after they won, and told us, his mindset was just about, making one more save than the other guy. And then after that, for the rest of the series, we didn't hear from him until the end of the year. I don't expect to hear from him again until there's a win or it's the end of the series and they're moving on to the next series, or it's the end of the season. I think this is important. I think this is something that, we believe clearly in the media, and there's a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, you media guys, you think it's all about you. I don't think it's about us. I think it's about the fans. I think when we're doing our job properly, we're a conduit to the fans. And I think right now fans are feeling frustrated, and having a goaltender walk out and talk and acknowledge that frustration would be something that would be cathartic for fans, to hear Connor Hellebuyck, to hear the thought process right now of a goaltender and where he is, right? Like last season when things turn for the Winnipeg Jets and they lose 4 straight, you don't know what's going through Connor Hellebuyck's head until the end of the year, where you learn at the end of the year that he liked his game and thought his game was fine. And maybe, probably that's exactly what he would say in this moment. But you want to know what a goaltender is thinking at this moment, going into game 5 of a series, going back on home ice, coming off of being pulled twice in a row. Where's your head? What's the thought process? What does Connor Hellebuyck think Connor Hellebuyck needs to do to get to a point that he's putting his thumbprint on this series? It's not a lot to ask for fans to expect that. And I just don't understand why it's not addressed. It's a strange one for me.
Yeah, I mean, Stu Skinner, do you think Stu Skinner was happy to be talking about losing his job in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year? Of course he didn't. But what did he do, Sean? He is out there and available. And when he won the job back, he was out there. When he lost in game 7, he was out there also. And again,
who did we talk to last year when he got absolutely lit up and was being mocked by the hockey world in game 1 of the Jet series against the Avalanche? Georgiev was sitting right there at his stall, and he was sitting right there the next day, answered everyone's questions until everyone was gone. So he came out, had to talk after getting lit up by the Jets, had to talk during the practice day the next day, and then talked before game 2. And again, I don't understand it. I think fans want to hear these things. It's not crazy that they should. But I did want to go in a different direction here.
Sure.
Ghosted or Ghost 3D, probably Ghosted, says St. Louis can just sit back and play good defense, up 5 goals every game. This is the opposite of what is happening. And it's an important point to be made. So, Ken, you and I were talking the last time these two teams played in St. Louis. If you remember that game, St. Louis was up, and the Winnipeg Jets pulled off one of those last-minute miracle comebacks, got out escaped the death trap, won in overtime. This was, and I started thinking, was that maybe not something that worked against the Winnipeg Jets? Hear me out, folks. In that game, the St. Louis Blues took up the lead, and then I forget who we did that game. I'm trying to think of who my color guy was in that game, or maybe it was Bart's. I think it was John Bartlett who was calling the game, said he absolutely hated how the Blues played the end of that game. Like they just sat back and held on for dear life. I've said this before. You don't do that against the Winnipeg Jets. If you allow the Jets to start rolling, like I said, they are a giant boulder, and when they start rolling, they're going to roll all over you. If you're going to go back and say, I'm just going to stand by my house and try and keep that fast-moving boulder from going over my house, it's going to go in. You stop the boulder before it starts rolling. I think that's been important in this series, and I think, Ken, it's been a reason why we've seen the blowouts that we've seen, if you want to call these last two games that. It's because the St. Louis Blues don't give the Jets room to start coming back in these games. They're not giving them opportunities. They're not defending them. They're attacking them, to use a line that I stole from Luke Shen about Josh Morrissey. The Winnipeg Jets are under duress, under fire, nonstop. It doesn't matter if it's 7-2, doesn't matter if it's 5-1, doesn't matter if it's 3-2 or whatever. There's no sitting back on this team. And to the point that I was making out of the gate in the show, the Winnipeg Jets are entirely predicated, in my opinion, on momentum. If they've got it, you're in trouble. If they don't, they're in trouble. It's a real it's all in. The Jets are all in, and it's either when they play poker, they are bullying the pot at all times. So if you don't let them get to that point to be a bully, it's a problem for them. And so that's why this is actually the opposite of what's happening, Ghosted. Sorry, I'm just going to do this again and bring this point up again. St. Louis can just sit back and play good defense, up 5 goals. They're not sitting back. They are attacking nonstop. They're not letting the Jets out of their zone. It's why they keep scoring. They're catching the Jets. They're turning them over. And like I said, the Jets, how they like to defend, when they're getting the puck to different spots, now the Jets are moving more. It's opening things up, and that's why the puck is ending up in the back of the Jets' net. It's why you're seeing in the past, third periods are what the Jets own, and they get stronger. Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing St. Louis, even when they don't need to, are owning the third periods. It can, more than anything, and this isn't necessarily the question. I'd like you to dig into the aggression that they're showing, but it sure does show the importance, to your point about the Jets, if they could have gone up 2-0. Like, starts are important for the Jets, because the way it's going in this series right now, when they get down, it sure seems like the Blues have figured out the way to keep them on their heels rather than being able to get up and get on their toes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a difference in today's game. The Jets had a bunch of those churning shifts, Sean, that you like to talk about, and so do I. But how many of those were in the second and third? I mean, not very many that I saw. They just seem to be frustrating the Jets on a lot of levels. And, they're not going back to snake charmer hockey, but they're not sticking to their core values either. And it's just something too. I mean, we talk about lessons learned and everything else. Jets said all the right things at the practice rink yesterday, Sean, and then they backed it up with a great start, and then they kind of wilted again. And, yes, they showed a little bit of fire late in the game, but, this is a real push for them. And I mean, I understand, they're going to get away from the rink and, the 2-day breaks and everything else, but they need to get back to their, template, or else they're going to be asking a lot of hard questions in the off season again, Sean. And again, these are facts. I mean, all we heard all year was how it was different. They showed it was different, but right now they need to stop the boulder, or else people are going to be saying same old Jets, right? I mean, that's where they're at right now. And again, this is not a one-person situation. It's a lot of players that need to, the 5 to 10% better theme, Sean. It applies even more so right now for them, because there's a bunch of guys that need to be better. There's some guys that have been really good in the series, like Morgan Barron has been on fire out there, but there's some other guys that need to elevate their game, and that's how reputations get built, Sean, right? This is the thing. You want to change your reputation? Change the reputation by doing things that have you remembered for big plays or big moments. That's where the Jets are at right now.
Yeah, well, and you touched on it. So second line being outscored in this series by the fourth line. And Mark Scheifele's line does get a goal in this here. Mark Scheifele's line is the reason they win games 1 and 2. So again, I've said this before, like, you can say whatever you want. And, at some point, you're going to need that line to check in and probably win another game if you're going to win 2 more games in this series. That's what your top line is for. But at this stage, give me an idea of what you think it looks like in that room. What kind of pressure does this start putting on the shoulders of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor and that top line when you don't have that secondary scoring coming? And where is that second line at, Ken, do you believe, in breaking through and putting some pucks in the back of the net? Because I honestly thought that there's, we talked about it. Game one, Nino Niederreiter was the best Jet for the first 10 minutes of that game. Cole Perfetti looked dangerous in game two, and I thought for parts of game three. This was, I don't want to call it a no-show game by that line, but there was very, very little in that game for me to believe that the line two is on the precipice of breaking out and becoming a major factor in this series.
Yeah, I thought they had a very good first, Sean. 9 shots on net for the 3 of them combined. I know maybe a couple of Perfettis were on the power play, but there were some
long distance ones.
Sure, early on there were a couple of.
They may count as shots. Those aren't that. Those are just whistles.
We're not high danger chances by any stretch, but I mean, Nemestikov had a really good chance in front of the net, but yeah, I mean, that line's got to be better. I'm very curious. Again, I mentioned Velarde. I'm not trying to get away from the second line. They need to do more. Nino Niederreiter is a guy with a ton of playoff experience, Sean. He knows where you need to go to get goals. Blues are getting tons of goals from the tips and being around the net. Nino Niederreiter is an excellent tipper in front of the net. He needs to get there. And get himself some tip goals, the Pavelski kind of special, being around the blue. He's been around the blue paint, but he's got to have a few more scoring chances around that area. And I'm very curious to see what the Jets will do with Gabe Velarde if indeed he is ready for Game 5. It's a big choice for Scott Arniel. And this is the other thing. If you start one way, it doesn't mean you have to stay that way. I think it is likely that he can go with Scheifele and Connor. That's a line that was excellent for the Jets. We were talking about them as being one of the best lines in hockey. Alex Iafallo is still a great worker bee, getting a whole lot accomplished out there. But you can play Iafallo with anybody, Sean. And if you need to go Iafallo back with Scheifele and Connor, you can. But I think the best option is to go with him on the top line with Scheifele and Connor. That line had the most success during the course of the year. And again, you can sub in Iafallo for shifts if you want to or need to, or if you want to put Perfetti up there, you can. But Gabe's probably not going to be ready for 20, 22 minutes. So there's going to be other guys that are going to have to step up in that scenario. If the Jets chose to go, with Perfetti, Velarde, and Nemestikov, I mean, that's an option for them too. And then too, they'll see what else they do. Again, I thought Morgan Barron was excellent in this game. The Jets need scoring from Lowry's line also. They're playing extremely hard. We know that. Appleton had the great chance, but I mean, what were we talking about? Adam Lowry was one of the Jets' best players against Vegas 2 years ago in the playoffs. He produced a bunch of goals. That line right now just has the empty netter. So they need to do more also. But yeah, the second line right now has not gotten the job done, and they're going to need to get things turned around in order for the Jets to seize the momentum back in this series, whether that's, putting Iafallo with Perfetti and Nemestikov or whatever they do. And again, I'm not trying to, blame this on any singular person, Sean, but I mean, we talked about the second line center and how the Jets tried hard to go out and get one. We know why. I mean, Vladislav Nemestikov is playing incredibly hard and getting chances, but it's now 1 goal in his last 34 games, and I think none in 17. I mean, second line production is something that all teams rely on. And hey, Braden Shen just got his first goal of the series too, so it's not like he's getting taken to the cleaners, but Braden Shen scored a massive goal, and he's also been a massive machine in terms of being the leader of the hit parade during the series. He's been very effective. So that line needs to elevate, whether it's individually or collectively. The Jets are going to have a hard time winning the series if that line is kept off the board.
Last one before we kind of get into the awards. I always like kind of gauging the response that we get from the coach and how you think it will play with the players and how things are going in this series. So we got a very fiery version of Scott Arniel after the Game 3 loss, combative, almost, I would say, angry for sure, seemed angry. This was a little bit of a different one. Do you think is that tact with the media, or do you think he's taking a different approach with his players?
I think that Scott was exuding calm because he knows he can't afford to exude anything other than calm. If he wants his players to believe in themselves, he's got to show belief in them. He does believe in them for sure. And I thought he hit the right tone, and even I thought the Luke Shen. So the reason why we asked for Luke Shen is because this is the reason the Jets brought in Luke Shen. I mean, you brought in a two-time Stanley Cup winner to exude calm in a not calm situation, right? And that's what Luke Shen did. He set the right tone and said all the right things in his post game as well. So to me, I think it's a reflection of how, again, is Scott Arniel, does he like the situation the Jets are in? Absolutely not. But he also has been around the game long enough to know that it is a best of three. They do have home ice advantage, which means he can dictate the matchups in 2 of those 3 games, and he expects his team to respond. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that he was a little bit less fiery than the other day. He'll still be pissed off that they lost and in the manner that they lost. But he also knows that now this is the time of the year. These 2 days between games, this is where coaches are put under the microscope. They've got to come up with a plan, and they need their players to execute that plan, right now almost flawlessly, Sean, right? You got to be almost flawless right now if you're the Jets, based on how well that the St. Louis Blues are playing. So, again, first Stanley Cup playoff series for Scott Arniel as a head coach. Yeah, I don't think this is a matter of the Jets being out-coached badly by Jim Montgomery by any stretch. The players' execution needs to be better. I thought the Jets' counters to some of the adjustments worked fine. But at the same time, was it a perfect game? Absolutely not. The execution needs to be better. Scott Arniel knows that their special teams need to be better, and those coaches are going to be digging in for the next 2 days as well, much like we saw. What did we see today, Sean? We saw a different composition on the top unit. You had Connor and Perfetti switching sides. You had Scheifele in the high slot. They had a couple good backdoor looks, but then didn't really do enough to generate or draw penalties later in the game where a power play goal may have helped them. So, or what did you think of Arniel's demeanor?
No, I think that's exactly what he's needing to do. I think, he tried one, right? He tried kind of reading the riot act. You know what I mean? He tried to set that, I was a high school basketball coach at one time, and I was coaching my basketball team, when I came from kind of a hockey background, and I'd been in plenty of, situations where a coach went off. One of my favorite coaches I had was a really fiery guy. And I remember we were in a really important game, and I thought the officiating was just absolutely terrible, and it wasn't fair. And at one point I felt like sometimes what you need to do is you need to stand up for your players, right? You need to go to bat for them and see that you're willing to fight for them. And so I did, and I got a technical, and then I got thrown out of the game, right? I was ejected, and and then what proceeded to happen to the team afterwards was that they just one after another lost their composure and got kicked out of the game till there was barely enough guys left for the assistant coach to put on the ice. So I had gone out thinking, I'm going to show these guys that I'm there to fight for them. Maybe they'll fight for me. What they perceived out of it was well, oh, he's going to lose his composure and get kicked out. Me too, right? And so, what I learned from that is people can take that fieriness different ways, right? And I wonder out of Scott Arniel if him getting fired up and being because we heard this before, and again, this is why I said I almost always agreed with Scott Arniel's assessments of the game. But the 2 times that they played the Utah Hockey Club and he sloughed it off to them not playing a very good game and they weren't ready to play, I disagreed with him. I didn't think that I thought that the other team game planned well for them and beat them, and fair and square, and it should have been acknowledged, and it shouldn't have been sloughed off like that. But he came out after those games and was like, we weren't ready, blah, blah, blah. And he took his team to task. And the next game they went out and they won and they performed well, right? Well, the next game they played different teams that didn't challenge them the same way that the Utah Hockey Club did. So what may have happened is they just would have got back to the style of hockey that worked for them and played against a team that didn't necessarily challenge their style of hockey, and they would have turned around and won. So it's very possible that he's had moments this year where he's like, I'm just going to get really fiery and I'm going to get combative with the media, kind of like he was in the whatchamacallit game. He was combative with the media after the LA Kings game, and then they follow that up with the Vegas Golden Knights game, right? So in his head, he's probably thinking, I'm going to get fiery, and then they're going to respond. And then you didn't get that tonight. I think there's a little bit of a more care to this thing now, because put it this way, someone brought this up. I didn't start, so it's not there. Enough of you have said it. But the 4 straight losses thing, so many people are saying, man, if this ends in 4 straight losses, like nothing will have been learned. There's no way that the Winnipeg Jets right now aren't tight. There's no way they're not looking and thinking, oh my goodness, could this possibly be happening again? There's no way that's not in their head. And I think what you're seeing from Scott Arniel is a tact where he's saying, okay, this is the giant boogeyman that we have to slay, and we don't slay it by yelling at it and getting guys fired up. Our guys are a little bit vulnerable right now, and usually people who are vulnerable don't need to be yelled into performing. They need to be supported into performing, and that's what I think that we're seeing out of his reaction right now. Time to get to our before we do, we'll see. We will see if that style of coaching ends up paying off for the Winnipeg Jets in this situation. Hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Comrie Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Okay, Kenny, got a Johnson Group got you covered play of the game?
Yeah, not a ton of great options, but there was a very good backtrack stick lift by Kyle Connor. I'll give that an honorable mention. I'm going to just say Eric Comrie with the got you covered, allowing Connor Hellebuyck to get an early reset and, exuding some confidence here. And I'm just going to go with Comrie as a blanket and coming out of the bullpen here today.
For sure. I thought he would, like I said, I thought he was square to the puck. I thought he was really good. I thought he challenged. He reminded me of that game that he played against the Vegas Golden Knights, which is exactly why I would go with Eric Comrie, to give him an opportunity to put his, and I don't think it's a bad thing for Connor Hellebuyck, because if things don't go well and you put Connor Hellebuyck back in there, put it this way. If you think Connor Hellebuyck's response to that would be to not play well because he'd been challenged in that manner, then that is not a champion's mindset. If you think Connor Hellebuyck is the best goaltender in the world, he should be able to take a scenario like that, use it as fuel, use it to fire himself and move himself going forward. He should be able to do that. It's why I would go in that situation, because I don't think not starting Connor Hellebuyck means you lose Connor Hellebuyck. I think not starting Connor Hellebuyck is potentially the Pristine Roofing wake-up call that he could sure use to join this series. Anyways, I agree with you on the Johnson Group. Got you covered play of the game, Ken. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, TCB lamplighter of the day, what do you got?
Yeah, for me, it's the Shen goal from St. Louis. It's just an absolute example of will, right? This is will. You want to go to the hard areas. Jets just should have had all the momentum. They killed off the Lowry minor, I believe it was. Colton Parayko, great rush. Yes, Dylan Samberg got a good piece of it. Hellebuyck got a stick on it. But at the end of the day, the puck ends up in the back of the net because Braden Shen wanted it more. He got to the puck and he buried it. So that's what I'm going with that one. Repeatable goals. When you go to the hard areas, you get rewarded. That's a repeatable goal.
Here's something. Sunny Side Up says, sorry, but they've been coddled enough in past years. Maybe they do need their collective butts kicked. Maurice did it in Florida to results. There you're talking about a Vezina caliber goaltender who was pulled out because the performance was not there, eventually made his way back in and took them to a Stanley Cup. Sometimes you got to take a step back to take those giant leaps forward that you haven't been able to take so far. That's a really, really good point there by Sunnyside Up. And I'll go with you on your TCB Lamplighter, Ken. It doesn't matter what we think, though. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter. You're automatically entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift your own, head on down to 11290 Keniston. And that brings us to our TCB Lamplighter winner from our last show, and that would be Mr. Ajax 711. Mr. Ajax, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. You are about to find out, Mr. Ajax, it is the nectar of the gods. And that brings us to our keg save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
I think Bennington on Perfetti. That was the best chance. A power play chance in the first period. The back door from Scheifele, maybe?
Yeah. I'll go with that one as well. I'll tell you this: he's got my keg save of the game in every single game so far this series. He's got in my opinion, the Sean Reynolds stat for every game in this series so far. This has been series is tied at 2. The battle in the crease has been lopsided, to say the least. That's our keg save of the game. Share with us yours. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our winner. That would be John Chan. John, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And Ken, anything to say before we get going?
Well, we wondered about how Jordan Bennington would handle the chance. Do you think Connor Hellebuyck is hearing them at all? Will it serve as motivation? Is it a nuisance to him? Does he care? Just okay on that front.
I want to say something here. The St. Louis Blues as a team, as an organization, as a coaching staff, as a fan base are betting that taunting Connor Hellebuyck is like they think that he is not able to get it together in the playoffs. When you're talking about, like I've said this in the past, I always talk about that one playoffs where I thought PK Subban awakened Sidney Crosby, who had not playing very well. He kind of went at him. I thought it was ridiculous. Sidney Crosby goes off, and the rest is history. Right now, the fan base last game, the fan base this game, loud chants of Comrie, loud chants of to the point that you said the organ player jumped in on it. The organ player was going,
"We want Connor."
And all that. But here, this to me, more than anything, Ken, I thought was, I don't know if it was meant to be a shot across the bow.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you about this.
Maybe it was just shouting out your goaltender. But I asked Monty about the game and what he thought they were doing well, why it's turning out like that. But he said this. He ended with this: we're owning the net front, and our goalie is making saves. Okay, if Connor Hellebuyck is a Michael Jordan type who needs to see some kind of enemy that is disrespecting him, it would be very easy for him to look at that and say that in the fact that the opposition's coach is pointing out that his goaltender is making saves, by omission, he's almost saying that the opposition's goalie isn't. I thought that was, give it credit, give him credit. Jordan Bennington, we've talked about it on this show. He's making saves, no doubt about it. He's making saves. I'm sure Connor Hellebuyck would like it if someone was saying that about him in this post game, in the media coverage. No one's saying that right now. And if he wants people talking about him like that, he's going to need to up his game. And he's going to be able to be the kind of guy who does not get bowled over by the mocking tones that the St. Louis Blues and their fans seem to be taking with Connor Hellebuyck. Anything else?
That was it.
Okay. That's it for us, folks. Thank you for being along for the ride here. 438 of you.
Good work, folks.
Still, best of 3 series. Lots to be done. Lots to be done here. And I'm not even going to bring it up. Jude, leave that stuff out of here. Whatever you're talking about. And if you're talking about this, if it's true, I don't know what you think you would be accomplishing by trying to bring something like that into a public forum. If someone was struggling with something, the idea that your response is to try and bring it out as part of a public conversation is ridiculous. Be better. You don't need to be doing that. Other than that, folks, just wanted to say, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs, TransCanada Brewing Company, and of course, the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you folks. We will reconvene, do this back in Winnipeg after Game 5. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.